of business are you in?
We predict the future. The best way to predict the future is to invent it.
There are so many lies around us, and we are in a system that is so full of lies that sometimes when something true comes to light, no one believes it because it contradicts other lies. We are so convinced of the lies that if a shred of truth that is ignored by the liars who set up this system comes to light, we cannot believe it because it contradicts the other lies. That's why, for a real, happy, and powerful life, completely eliminate all lies and replace them with the truth. Because these lies are the main reason why the whole world today is full of chaos and evil, and why evil rules humanity. We are proud to present another new episode that will replace most of the lies in your life with the truth and show you the big picture in harmony with each other. In the previous chapter, we showed the evidence for the existence of the continents of Atlantis and Mu, and that these continents were sunk by the flood. In other words, the continents of Atlantis and Mu definitely existed and were definitely sunk by the flood. So what happened in Mu and Atlantis? What was the connection of these two sunken continents with the dimensional beings? First of all, according to ancient records, dimensional beings somehow crossed over into our dimension before the flood. Because before the flood, the kings of countries all over the world were these dimensional beings, also known as aliens. The presence of ancient statues and idols in the form of aliens and reptilians from ancient times all over the world clearly shows this. Remember, in parts 3 and 4, we explained with evidence that both jinns and aliens have the same characteristics. We explained that both aliens and jinn are dimensional beings, that they appear in our dimension in the form of aliens and reptiles, that they communicate with humans through magic, that they live longer than humans, that they can live in space, that they created polytheistic religions by telling humans that they are intermediaries between them and the Creator, that they can have relations with human women, and many other characteristics. Now, in the light of this information, you will realize that these gods who are mentioned in all the ancient records as coming down from the sky have the same characteristics. That is, they are all jinn, that is, aliens. In the clay tablets called Sumerian king lists found by Layard and Woolley in Mesopotamia, we have already seen in the previous chapter that at the top of the list, before the normal kings, there are rulers who each lived for almost 10,000 years. According to the tablets, it is written that they ruled the country for a long time before the flood and then handed it over to humans. Similarly, Babylonian texts explain this event with a phrase like, when the kingdom descended from the sky. The same is also found in the Egyptian tablets. At the top of the list of Egyptian kings are kings who do not have human characteristics, who have the characteristics of the jinn and aliens we have already described. Early Egyptian kings, such as Ra, Isis, Horus, Osiris, fall into this category, and as we all know, these god kings do not have human characteristics. According to the Egyptian inscriptions before the pyramids, in the period called Tepzepi, which is the beginning of everything, the sky gods who came from the stars with their flying vehicles built civilizations from mud and water. The gods after them were the children of those first sky gods. Hindu legends from 15,000 years ago often speak of a reptilian race called Naga, who came from the sky and brought knowledge to humans. The Nagas merged with humans to form the noble race. In the book Chilambalam, the sacred book of the jaguar priests, it says, the path of the stars was opened and the 13 and 9 gods descended from the sky. So the ancient Native Americans were also ruled by non-human beings from the sky. It is possible to find different versions of the humanoid snake race in many historical records. For example, the Hopi Indians believe that in ancient times, during a time of war, they were hidden in a cave underground by snake people and were rescued by these snake people. Of course, this is an exceptional example. If you follow our documentary, you will see that the serpentine race often does bad things to humans. They try to become the gods of humans, They enslave humans and force human sacrifices. As in the case of magic, it is certain that the first favors that the serpentine race does to humans are for their own benefit. Just like this, the archaeologist Augustus Laplangian found a carving of a 12-headed snake in a mausoleum in Yucatan in the Americas. Plangian later found an inscription explaining that this snake symbol was the symbol of the 12 Mayan dynasties that ruled for 18,000 years before the Kan dynasty. This same information was confirmed by the Chinese book Tichi. In Japan too, there is documentation that the dynasty of the 12 kings ruled for 18,000 years. The same information is mentioned in an ancient Indian manuscript. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, in his work, he saw 343 giant statues made of wood in the Temple of Theb in Egypt. Among these statues of Egyptian rulers were statues of non-human gods who descended from the sky and ruled people before human kings. According to the records of Chaldea, around 16,000 years BC, the Tolan II Atlantis Confederation was living its heyday in the Middle East and Africa, and the rule of this confederation was in the hands of wise kings descended from Venus. In Sumerian tablets, it is stated that the most powerful gods were the Anunnaki, who could fly. Below them were gods who could not fly. These gods were humanoid, but essentially had no form and could take on any form. The author John A. Keel, an expert on the paranormal, has also stated that the reptilian race from outer space played the role of gods in past societies and that human sacrifice was their work. Again, these ancient gods who came from the sky and ruled the people were always dressed as snakes. This has led to a great love of snakes in polytheistic religions all over the world. One of the common features of pagan religions is that snakes are sacred in all of them. If you do some research, you will find that the snake is more important than anything else in these polytheistic religions. The serpent is above all other idols in the form of lions, eagles, bulls, and humans. It is their judge and ruler. Already these other idols symbolize a different kind of power of the dragon god. So what and who is this snake? What is its significance? Remember, we explained in chapter 1 that in Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, the devils are in the guise of snakes. That is reptilians. In the following chapters, we have shown many evidences that gods, aliens, and jinns are always depicted as snakes and greys all over the world. For example, the creature depicted as a jinn in the Davetnami, a work written under the influence of Islamic culture, bears a striking resemblance to the Sumerian god Iana and the Mexican reptilians. From the oldest polytheistic religions around the world to today's pagan religions, the serpent is always and everywhere the chief deity. In polytheistic religions, the snake is the intermediary between the creator and man. Since the snake is the master who leads people to the creator, the symbol of the snake is also a symbol of the creator. In very religious polytheistic societies, it is even believed that the snake is the creator himself. People must listen to its commands. In polytheistic religions, the relationship of the snake with everything is written separately. For this reason, there is so much historical information about the snake, we cannot dwell on all of it. We will continue with the important parts. First of all, we should mention that the biggest factor for the spread of the snake symbol in polytheistic religions all over the world is the continent of Mu, which ruled the world before the flood. The continent of Mu was a super powerful state ruled by snake gods and received technology from aliens. We can see this in many ancient tablets. In the ancient Mayan tablet describing the land of Mu, the king of kings, the ruler of the world, is seen with snake symbols. The ancient inscription describing Mu in the temple of Tiahuanaco in Peru shows snake symbols. The ancient inscription describing Mu in the pyramid of Xochitl in Mexico shows snake symbols. An ancient American Indian drawing of Mu shows the country of Mu with the symbol of a snake. Serpent symbols are seen in the ancient rock inscriptions describing Mu in Nevada. Prophet Muhammad also said that the most ancient demons had a great connection with the seas and snakes, explaining that the throne of the devil was in the middle of the sea, or in it, and that there were snakes around it. Similarly, Prophet Muhammad said that the Dajjal, that is the Antichrist, is stranded on an island. First, let us look at the characteristics and importance of the serpent god in Mu, Atlantis, and its colonies. In the countries of Mu and Atlantis, the snake was known as the greatest god. In the tablets examined by Mu, researcher and archaeologist Colonel James Churchward, the following information is given.
In the beginning, the universe consisted only of a spirit or essence. Everything was dull and silent, devoid of life. Only the Supreme Spirit, the great eternal power, the Creator, the seven-headed serpent, was moving in the bottomless darkness.
The seven-headed serpent appears in all ancient texts because it symbolizes the Creator and creation. Whenever and wherever we encounter this symbol, we know that it says, "I am a symbol of God, the Creator." When you look at me, you think of Him. I am an intermediary to bring your thoughts to God.
In the Quran, this method of deception used by Satan since the world began is written as follows.
As for those who have taken others than Allah for their guardians, they say, we worship them only that they may bring us nearer to Allah.
Churchward points out that in the Mu, the most sacred symbol of God is the sun, and along with the sun, the symbol of Naga, the serpent, is used to symbolize the creator god. The snake is the creator of the world in the Central Pacific Islands, where the religion of Mu is the most original, as they are the remnants of the sunken continent of Mu. In some places in this region, there is a belief that the cosmic serpent lives underground and will eventually bring the apocalypse and destroy the world. The snake appears in many places with different names: Naga, Nagual, Nakal, Adder, Jedi, Amaris, Levites, Dragon, Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, Shamaran, Serpent, Snake, Typhoon, Nahash. In Assyrian, Babylonian, and Sumerian creation myths, Lakmu and Lakamu, who created the gods of the sky and earth, are male and female serpents. In the Sumerians, the snake is a symbol of the gods. In Sumer, the symbol of the god Enki is the serpent. Ishtar, as a great goddess, is depicted with a serpent. The most basic symbol of the Phrygian Sabazios is the serpent. In the Hittites, the great serpent Ashurtu and Iluyanka is a sacred creature and a national deity. Orpheus's followers believe that the formation of the universe in antiquity was the result of the union of the goddess Cybele and the serpent Ophion. In Greek mythology, all those created from the earth are snake-shaped. In Greek mythology, the goddess Gaia also has snakes. The legendary Cecrops, the first king of Athens, is known as half man and half snake. Snake in Greeks is the symbol of Zeus Chthonios. In ancient Greece, some kings were believed to be snakes. In Roman tradition, snakes are associated with savior gods, fertility, and healing deities such as Salus. In Hinduism, snake-like creatures were considered to be incarnations of divine beings. The importance of the snake in the religion of the Egyptians does not even need to be explained. The ancient historian Eusebius tells that the creator, whom the Egyptians called Nep, was symbolized by the snake. In the lower Egyptian kingdom, the animal god was the cobra snake. The snake was the symbol of the pharaoh's sovereignty. Even dead snakes were mummified and buried in temples. Egyptian pharaohs carried the cobra on their heads. In the mythology of ancient Colombia, the primordial woman, Bachue, transforms into a great serpent and is sometimes called the divine serpent. The Norse god Wotan often takes the form of a snake. Saul, the sun goddess of Norse mythology, pours light from a pitcher and always has a green snake with her. Vizslavik, the legendary hero of the Slavs, is the son of a snake. In Tibet, a snake and a bird are combined, and a human head with horns is placed on this combined creature. The same motif is also found in Iran. It is suggested that this is related to the dragon motif. In fact, such motifs better describe the serpent gods, because snake gods are both human-like and can fly. In Turkish folk belief, Erboke is a being that is half human and half snake. At the head of these beings is Shamaran, the serpent ancestor. In ancient pagan Turkish beliefs, the dragon is a sacred, celestial, and good being, the god named Mithra, who is believed in a very wide geography, covering Anatolia, Iran, India, and Mesopotamia, and is shown together with the sun, is a snake with a lion's head in some narratives and symbolizes fire. Snake worship, cult, continues in primitive societies today. According to these religions, the snake is also the god of water and lives among the roots of trees. The most common totem among African natives is the snake. The gods of the ancient Mexican, Aztec, Toltec, Mayan civilizations in South America are snakes. The city of Tamuanchan in Mexico means the place where the serpent people descended. The Aztecs also believed that humans were born from a serpent woman called Cihuacotl. According to the American mythologist Joseph Campbell in his book The Hero's Eternal Journey, there are also interesting celestial and serpent rulers in Chinese mythology. The creator goddess of Chinese mythology is Nu Gua. Her consort is Fu Shi, who is also her brother. Nu Gua rules the earth and Fu Shi rules the sky. In some depictions, Fu Shi is even depicted holding a double compass, symbolizing the sky, and Nu Gua holding a carpenter's square, symbolizing the earth. Nu Gua is depicted as a half-dragon, half-human woman in statues made for her. In all ancient myths, snakes are linked to the heavens and are beings that come from outer space and build civilizations. Some of the interstellar snakes in Atlantis are said to have come from the Pleiades. Researcher and writer Ergun Arakdal, in his journal Spirit and Matter, states that the snake is the symbol of galactic civilization and that people belonging to the galactic race are called children of the snake. He says that the very ancient symbol of the snake biting its tail refers to the spiral galaxy. Here we have given only a rough outline of the race of the snake people. In conclusion, the researcher-author Farah Yurdozu summarizes the race of the snake people as follows.
Today, the claim of a reptilian race living underground with advanced technology is widespread not only in India, but all over the world, such as Brazil. In Africa, China, and France, reptilian creatures with a third eye on their foreheads are terrorizing.
Dragons are a symbol that emerges from the sanctity and power of the snake. However, in mythology, the symbols of snake and dragon are often used interchangeably, and in the Far East there is no distinction between these two symbols. That is, the snake and the dragon are considered the same. This type of jinn, in the form of snakes, dragons, crocodiles, or lizards, generally manifests in our dimension in the form of reptiles. Humans generally refer to them as snakes. Dragons exist in all cultures. In some cultures, dragons eat human flesh and kidnap young girls. According to these cultures, dragons can also transform into other animals. In general, dragons are characterized as flying snakes. In many stories, the dragon is the watcher and guardian of sacred waters. Dragons are definitely related to water. They are called the Lord of Rain and Water, the God of Thunder, or the God of Rain and Water. There are also those who create storms. In some mythologies, they are gods of light. The reason why the dragon is so connected with water and the sea may be because of Atlantis and Mu. As we have explained in previous chapters, the submerged continents of Atlantis and Mu were the home of the serpent rulers of antiquity. The famous Hermes is said to be the same person as Thoth, and according to the monotheistic religions, Hermes is most likely the prophet Idris. As we proved in part 1 and will show much more evidence in the future, all the ancient monotheistic religions, except Islam, have been falsified. Likewise, the information about the prophet Idris has been altered and falsified, as in the text you are about to see. According to the information in the Emerald Tablets, a dragon appears to Hermes, who is said to have carried the religion of Mu and Atlantis to the colonial countries. While meditating and praying, the narration is as follows.
This image was the great dragon, whose wings covered the sky, and from whose body lights emanated in all directions. The great dragon called Hermes by name and asked him why he was thinking about the mystery of the world. Horrified by what he saw, Hermes threw himself to the ground in front of the dragon and begged him to reveal who he was. The Supreme Being declared that he was Poimandres, the mind of the universe, the creative intelligence, the absolute ruler of all things.
You will find many more documents and information about the serpent gods in the previous chapters, as well as in the following chapters. In conclusion, all this evidence clearly proves that the reptilian-looking dimensional beings characterized as demons in Abrahamic religions are the gods of polytheistic religions.
Did I not ordain for you, O children of Adam, that you should not worship Satan? Verily, he is a plain enemy to you.
Again, remember in chapter 5 we explained in detail that the priests of polytheistic religions were sorcerers because magic was a method of communicating and negotiating with dimensional beings. These priests, who were magicians in ancient times, met with the serpent gods and received lessons and orders from them. In Native Americans, the sacred dance of both the Mayans and the Hopis is the snake dance. The Chimu people of Peru and the Hopi Indians believe that they are descended from the same snake ancestor. The sacred city of Chan Khan, founded by the Chimu people, means snake. In this city there is a dragon temple that is still used today. There is still a snake cult of the Hopis today. The name Khan is also the name of the ancestor of the Jinn in Turkish culture. In some traditions in Africa, shamans are believed to take lessons from the Chitauris, a serpent clan that teaches deep esoteric knowledge. This African ritual of communing with the gods is similar to the Native American ritual with the drug ayahuasca. Many of the Native American shamans who use this plant believe that they communicate with snake and alien-like beings and learn lessons from them. The name of the pagan priests of the Celts, the Druids, means snake priests. According to a Scottish manuscript, the Druid priests were taught everything by a serpent goddess. In India, sages and seers were called Nagas, meaning wise snakes. The placement of the symbol in the center of the forehead signified the use of inner psychic faculties to be wise like a snake and to have the third eye. In chapter 5 of the Black Box of the World, we showed a lot of evidence for the connection between magic and the serpent gods, so we will skip this topic. In conclusion, Dr. Irene Sangerbret, in her book Unsolved Secrets of Creation, mentions the possibility that the symbols of beasts and serpents found throughout the ancient world have something to do with creation and the world. Likewise, we all know from the holy books that mankind was sent to the world because of the devil in the guise of a snake. In the Islamic belief, the devil is a reason for sending human beings to the world, and he is there for human beings to be tested. That is, to reveal their capacities. And again, it's not just limited to what we have shown here. Serpent-human hybrid gods are found all over the world, and more evidence of them is coming to light every day. Today, images of gray aliens have been found in ancient artifacts all over the world. In addition to the serpent gods descending from the sky, we see gray alien gods, another type of dimensional beings very common in polytheistic religions. Gray aliens, who are the assistants of the serpent gods, have the characteristics of the fourth dimension. Just like the serpent gods, they can disguise themselves as they want. They can fly, that is, they can teleport. They give information to people. They act as gods to people. Gray aliens are included in polytheistic religions because they are helpers of the reptilian gods Just like all the people today who have been abducted by aliens tell us, it is the gray aliens who do the work and the reptilian aliens who manage them. Earlier, we showed the statues and figures of gray aliens in the Pacific Islands left over from the sunken continent of Mu. These are the gray alien idols of the ancient countries of Mu and Atlantis. Murray Hope, in his work Atlantis, Myth or Reality, quotes Hesiodos as follows. The Greek poet Hesiodos, one of the representatives of the demonic Greek philosophy who lived in the 8th century BC, speaks of them, these beings who ruled over Mu and Atlantis, as the old Jinn tribe, and of their destruction, using the following expressions.
Now the fate is sealed upon this nation. They are the holy Jinn of the earth, the turners of evil into righteousness, the protectors of mortals.
When he will gather them together and say, O company of Jinn, you have misled many of mankind. And their allies among mankind will say, Our Lord, some of us made use of others, and we have now reached our term, which you appointed for us.
In the beginning, everything was very good. Everything was going well. As things progressed, sorcerer priests introduced these beings to humans as gods. The magic trade grew and spread all over the world. Other people who learned magic came under the magnetic control of these beings because, as we have explained before, aliens were gaining the real power in magic, which was a magnetic exchange with dimensional beings. Then the serpent beings and their relatives became the chief gods and created polytheistic religions. And then what happened? Did people live a happy and prosperous life thanks to the technology and help they received through magic? Was the only problem for the Creator that only these beings were rulers? Did the Creator destroy these countries with the flood just because these beings, whom the Creator called demons, were ruling? What was the real problem in these countries that were advanced in technology and civilization? The law of the world is this: as people commit evil deeds, the evil that befalls them, that is disasters, increases. This is explained in the Quran, but there is also evidence based on quantum science, which we intend to explain in future chapters. Allah has already said that these verses are divine laws, that is, laws of the world like the laws of physics. And already today you see that countries that commit evil deeds a lot, whether they are religious or not, have more disasters befalling them, albeit belatedly. The reason why Creator destroyed the countries of Mu and Atlantis with their colonies is that great evils were committed systematically and could not be prevented, because the right path sent by the Creator was being completely diverted and turned into a path of evil. And so people were committing systematic evil, thinking that it came from the Creator and thinking that they were doing something good. In Chapter 5, we explained the logic and proved the existence of magic, the biggest of which is blood magic. As we know from quantum physics, our thoughts form subatomic parts. Therefore, negative dimensional beings, which are composed of subatomic parts, are greatly strengthened and nourished by the fear and bad energy created by this blood. Because with human sacrifice, all the existing bad emotions are revealed in the most intense way, along with a great sense of fear in all the people in the community. And the chemicals created by these emotions directly form subatomic parts. And these subatomic negative parts become a source of energy for the Jinn, which are the creatures consisting of subatomic parts that we have explained in the previous chapters. This should not sound strange to you because the same situation is partly happening in our world. When we humans are good with our will, we enjoy good things, and bad people enjoy bad things. Psychologically, we are happy and strong when good things happen. When bad things happen, the people who enjoy them are happy and become stronger. Of course, in the case of jinns, this empowerment is not only psychological, but more potent, like eating, because 4 beings composed of subatomic parts. Subatomic parts formed by people's emotions and thoughts are something concrete. Just like people, good dimensional beings are strengthened by positive influences and bad ones by negative ones. Since we are beings in the lowest dimension, the things we do have a stronger effect on their dimension. For example, demons speaking through the mouths of haunted people say that they suffer from the white light emanating from good deeds done in their presence. Similarly, it is a known phenomenon that when verses in holy books that talk about goodness and beauty are read, the possessed go crazy. It shouldn't be surprising to you that there is a creature that doesn't like white light, because there are also people among humans who don't like good things and love bad things as good. It is normal for bad people not to like good things. Quantum physics also explains this phenomenon of events in the lower dimension having a ripple effect on the upper dimension. Since shedding human blood is good for demons, they demanded human sacrifices for themselves. Especially in ancient times, human sacrifice for the gods was a common practice. As we explain in detail in the section on magic, as magic became widespread in society and the gods gained power, they increased their demands on people, which eventually led to human sacrifice and more human sacrifice. Just as in Islam, where good things were gradually imposed on people and not all worship and rules were imposed all at once, so too in polytheistic religions, the imposition of evil as worship was gradual. As you can see, there are bones, sacrificial altars, and carved reliefs of human sacrifices in all polytheistic religions in antiquity all over the world. This custom is continued today by Freemasons and Satanists who believe in the same polytheistic religion.
Because it is not the physical blood that is shed during the human sacrifice ceremony, but the fear energy that comes out of the blood is the food of the reptilian beings. You know, that's why the Mayan priests used to rip out the heart of living victims, to create more fear energy.
The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
When it did not end there, in antiquity, the gods wanted to drive humanity to as much evil as possible, and they wanted much more bloodshed, not just on the feasts of sacrifice. In the Abrahamic religions, the flood affected a very large part of the world, as we have shown the scientific evidence for in the previous chapter. What evil had been done that caused almost the entire world to be flooded? The ancient written sources that we will now present to you on this subject tell us that the world was split in two and fought with each other, that there was a great chaos. You can call it a normal war. Since Jinn are beings like humans, they may have disagreed and fought with each other due to a conflict of authority and interest. That is, they may have made the people who followed them fight. But we think this war is not a normal war, but a collusion. We cannot look at the demons in a good light because we know their bad behavior towards humans and the many evils they have done. And the data we already have says that this was a collusion. The serpent gods who ruled both Mu and Atlantis polarized and fought people by displaying a collusion between them because the world is ruled by those who best predict the future. The best way to predict the future is to create the future. So what is the best way to create the future? Of course, to rule your own enemy. If you, as a ruler, create your own enemy and rule it, you can control societies and remain a permanent ruler. Again, in order to bind people more firmly to a belief, their beliefs must have enemies. This is the first aspect. The other side of the issue is that demons in the other dimension derive constant and massive amounts of evil energy from death and carnage through endless chaos and war. War and terror events give the same result as blood magic. In fact, nothing happens to the leading gods of both sides in these so-called collusive wars. These symbols of gods fighting and killing each other are drawn to represent war. We will soon see that nothing happens to the gods who are related to each other in war, that it is only humans who are harmed, that it is always humans who die, that these gods make peace when the war is over and the matter is closed. But these ruling gods may have at times fought against other dimensional beings who were their enemies, or they may have fought against giants who aspired to power. So even if this is not a collusion, the possibility of each god claiming leadership increases the possibility of war and therefore human deaths, like the human sacrifice of pagan religions. For this reason, worshipping another being besides the Creator is considered one of the greatest sins in the Quran because it disrupts the whole system. Let us now examine the ancient records that describe the endless chaos and collusion that led to the Creator's destruction of Mu and Atlantis. In the passages of the Book of Dizyan, an ancient Indian book describing Atlantis and Mu, it says,
The first great waters came. It swallowed the 7 great islands. All who were holy were saved. All who were unholy perished.
The ancient commentaries of the Xian continents speak of the 5th human race that came after the Atlanteans as follows.
Those handful of chosen ones who had gone to inhabit that sacred island, from which the last savior would come, alone were now preventing 1/2 of humanity from annihilating the other. Humanity was divided. 2/3 of humanity was ruled by the descendants of the lower material spirits of the earth, who took possession of the bodies to which they had easy access. 1/3 joined the incipient 5th race, which would not lose its loyalty. These were the divine incarnations. When the poles shifted, for the 4th time, those who had been preserved and separated from the 4th race were not affected. As with the Lemurians, only the heathen Atlanteans disappeared and were never seen again.
In the ancient book of Enoch, which is not considered a sacred text, but is mentioned in the Old and New Testaments, the prophet Enoch, Idris, summarized the situation at that time in the barest way.
Then Michael and Gabriel and Raphael and Suriel and Uriel looked down from the heavens and saw the incalculable blood that had been shed on earth and the endless evils that had been committed. And they said to one another, The cries of the fallen world have reached the gate of the heavens. Giants were born of women. Then the whole earth was filled with blood and sin. Behold, now the souls of the dead are weeping, and their cries reach the gates of heaven.
There are many references in ancient documents to gods descending from the sky and marrying human women, and to giants as their children. We will explain the dimension of the events in Mu related to giants in the next chapter. In the Polynesian islands, the struggle between the snake god and the bird god was the subject of wood carvings. In the Sumerians, Tiamat of Babylon, the serpent of darkness, is depicted as a dragon. He is the epitome of chaos, the symbol of evil, and he fights and defeats Marduk, the symbol of the sun, that is, light. As you can see, in Mesopotamian mythology too, 2 serpent gods are at war. The Phaeton story, a historical memoir of the Greeks, refers to the conflict between the people of these sunken continents and some celestial beings. Just as in the Greek stories, according to Hindu culture, the gods were later involved in the loves and wars of mortal kings and heroes. In Indian scriptures and legends, the Naga race is a serpentine race that lives underground and interacts with humans on the surface. These snakes, still worshipped, can take on any disguise and transform into human beings. Indian manuscripts also mention another serpentine race called Sarpa, which is inferior to the Naga. There's also mention of a serpent kingdom that existed around the Indian Ocean and is said to have sunk to the bottom of the sea. In Indian mythology, there's a legend of a continent called Kumari Kandam, which was submerged by the flood, and today the discovery of man-made artifacts under the Indian Ocean shows that the Kumari Kandam continent is real. Indian epics and Puranas are full of examples of battles between gods and demons, and sometimes between gods and gods. The various parts of the Vedas and the supplementary works derived from them, mantras, brahmanas, aranyakas, Upanishads, together with the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and the Ramayana epics, are the source of the Aryan and Hindu stories of gods and heroes. According to these sources, in the beginning, there were only celestial beings, the oldest rotating beings. there was a disturbance in the heavens, and it was split in two by the dragon and the stormy spinning being. The god Kasyapa, one of the figures in this war, had many giants and monstrous children from his various wives and mistresses. Again, the Daityas, who are giants in Indian mythology, are fighting the Devas, who are gods. Again, the gods fight this battle using spells. So this battle of the gods in Indian mythology is the same battle that is described in other cultures, because almost all the events are the same, and in the Indian texts, the flood took place while this battle of the gods was going on. You can read in the ancient Mahabharata texts that the flood happened during this battle of the gods. The flood story of ancient Scandinavia tells the same story. These legends tell how Odin and his brothers killed the frost giant Ymir, which caused a great flood to erupt and drown people and animals. According to the Book of Dizon, after the battle between the forces of good and evil in Atlantis, the yellow-faced king neutralized the Vimanas, flying vehicles, of the evil and escaped in his Vimana when the flood occurred. We will discuss the technology of Noah's Ark and the flying vehicles of antiquity in detail in the next chapters. In the records of the 35 Ikrar Buddhas and in German and Norse mythology, it is stated that a great war took place before the fall of Atlantis. So the flood takes place while the war is going on.
Eventually, the flood overtook them while they were engaged in wrongdoing.
Tabari, one of the great Hadith scholars, in his work History of Tabari, tells us that at that time, giants and jinn demons were visible to humans, and that the state of enmity, war, and peace between human societies and giants lasted until the flood of Noah, after which most of the jinn demons and giants disappeared from sight. It is worth noting here that before the children of Adam came to earth, the jinn probably lived in 3D form, just like us. The famous Popol Vuh is the sacred book of the Guatemalan Indians and has been called the Bible of the Maya. In this book, the destruction of Atlantis is described as the great serpent was plucked from the sky. This statement is in harmony with Tabari's account and other ancient writings that the jinn disappeared after the flood. So all the independent ancient sources tell the same thing. Again, in the ancient Egyptian and Sumerian king lists, there is information that there were Egyptian and Sumerian kings, that is, jinn kings, who lived for thousands of years before the flood. But after the flood, they disappeared and were replaced by human kings. This means that with the flood, the jinn, that is, aliens, completely crossed over to the other dimension. In the book of Enoch, mentioned in the Old and New Testaments, the life of Noah is described as follows.
And God will put those watchmen, demons, who do injustice into the burning valley, between the mountains of gold, silver, iron, lead, and tin, which my grandfather Enoch showed me in the west. I have seen that valley. There was a great shaking on land and sea. While all this was happening, a smell of sulfur came out of that fiery metal and its movement, and the smell mingled with the waters. The valley of the watchmen, who led mankind astray, burned under that earth.
Even the Chinese historical records are full of information about the giants of the fourth race of Atlantean origin. The French translation of Shuking summarizes,
The Miaotzi are the perverted race of the pre-flood era who once retreated into rocky caves, and whose descendants are still said to be found in the vicinity of Canton. When the Miaotzi, according to our ancient documents, stirred the earth with the machinations of Qi Yo, it was filled with bandits. When Rat Chang Ti, one of the kings of the divine dynasty, saw that his people had lost the last vestiges of virtue, he ordered Tehong and Lilv to cut off all contact between skies and earth. Since then, there has been no more going up and no more coming down.
The Chinese teachings on the sinking of Atlantis and Mu into the sea summarize it as follows. They speak of a sacred island that once lay beyond the sun, and beyond that was the land of immortal, or very long-lived beings. And these immortal beings say that when the sacred island was darkened by sin and destroyed, some of the survivors took refuge in the great desert of the Gobi. They still live there, invisible, protected by the armies of the spirit from those who would try to approach them. Again, some ancient inscriptions in China read, "Our continent sank, so we fled here." It is claimed that these inscriptions are 14,000 years old from carbon tests. The philosophy of Mu and Atlantis continued in part in China after the flood of Noah. That is why the Chinese also said that the emperor was the son of sky. Chinese mythology also says in summary that the Jinn that were visible before the flood became invisible after the flood. Again, the Titanomachia, or the War of the Titans, in Greek mythology is the name given to the wars fought between the Greek gods and the giants, Titans, and Olympians in 3 different time periods. In the war, which has parallels to the wars of Agartha and Shambhala, the center of the Titans is Mount Othrys, and the center of the Olympians is Mount Olympus. Almost all of the warring gods are related to each other. It is disputed whether the war started before the creation of humans, but in the later stages of the war, humans accepted the gods as deities and helped them. There are 3 battles of giants in mythology: Titanomachy, Gigantomachy, Theomachy. It draws attention to the information that the flood took place at some stages of these wars. For example, Poseidon hits his spear on the ground to prevent this attack and makes the seas rise higher than the land. In the Second War of the Giants, the violence of the battle caused massive tsunamis and earthquakes in the world. In Egypt, we see Horus, the sun god, thrusting a spear into the head of the water snake Apophis. In Greece, Apollo, the sun, triumphs over Python, the symbol of the waters. In India, Vishnu, the sun, prevails over Anatha, the snake, the symbol of the waters. In Christianity, in the Roman Church, the Virgin Mary is depicted with a snake at her feet. In all ancient texts, the sun is always shown as a symbol that fights and defeats the one-headed serpent of the waters. And according to the archaeologist James Churchward, most of the authors who dealt with this symbol made mistakes. First of all, these historians have failed to distinguish between the symbol of the waters and the symbol of the sun, because they are both snakes. Secondly, because they are both snakes, the sun god and the water god are not at war. There is no war. The spear is a symbol of the solar powers that penetrate the waters and give life to the cosmic eggs that are there. As we can see, Churchward also realized that this war was not what it seemed, that it was a collusion, because the gods seemed to be fighting, but in fact they are strengthening each other.
The first reptilian beings that appeared in Sumer were called Anunnaki in Sumerian language. The word Anunnaki means beings from the sky and the underworld. When we look at the mythology and history of each country, there are 2 kinds of Anunnaki beings. People at that time characterized these beings as gods. But of course, it didn't mean God the Creator. These beings were just beings with superior technology and superior parapsychological properties than humans. One of these 2 groups comes from the sky, sometimes in human form. The other group comes from the ground and is reptilian. They are half reptilian and half human. And whichever civilization's archaeology you look at, you will find these 2 types of beings. They are the same in South America, in North America, in India, in Africa, in Europe, in Anatolia, everywhere. And the connection of these beings continues because they need humans. They feed on the energy of humans.
This conspiracy of collusion and war-making is in line with the Freemasons' chaos theory. Chaos is important for the Freemasons because in order to establish a new order, the old order must first be destroyed. That is, there must be chaos. For this, they make the opposing groups they rule in the countries they are in fight against each other, and they themselves come as saviors by making the war grow to the extent they want. You will see countless proofs of this in the numerous books on the Freemasons and in the following chapters. The Freemasonry organization was founded mostly by people of Israelite descent who were magicians, and the Quran tells us that the Israelites tried to start wars.
And as often as they kindle the fire of war, Allah extinguishes it, and they go about trying to spread mischief on earth, whereas Allah doesn't love those who spread mischief.
The myths of Agartha and Shambhala, which are mentioned in Tibetan and Central Asian traditions and describe the period of Mu and Atlantis, also speak of this great war. Agartha was the center of the sons of one, and Shambhala was the center of the sons of Belial. They also built underground shelters for war. It is widely believed that the underground tunnels in Cappadocia and elsewhere in the world, which equal the technology of Mu and Atlantis, are the bunkers in question. There is evidence of this war legend in many different ancient records. For example, in the Babylonian Talmud, the word Belial refers to evil and appears 27 times. Again, the word Belial is similar to the word Baal, the chief demon of the Abrahamic religions. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the ancient texts, Belial is the leader of the sons of darkness, according to the passage the sons of light versus the sons of darkness. Again, the word Belial is mentioned once in the Bible in the question of the Apostle Paul. According to the legends, the sons of one were supposedly the ones who used magic for good and brought good aliens to earth. The Belials were the group that used magic for evil and brought evil aliens to earth.
Devils, teaching men magic and such things that came down at Babylon to the two angels, Harut and Marut.
If you notice, both groups were based on magic and divided humanity in two with the aliens. That is the Jinns, which we proved to be the same in the previous episode. It is clear that the concepts of good and evil here are hollow and lies to deceive people, just as today America represents good and Russia evil. A friend of mine who stayed in Russia said that if I had to make a choice, I would prefer America, because at least in America, there is justice and human rights inside the country. America is trying to pretend that there is at least justice even outside its own country. In Russia, you can be subjected to the worst tortures and practices for no reason at all. This is the same way that today, thanks to the collusion of the United States, which is the apostle of democracy and freedom, with Russia, there are big wars. Countries have to be either pro-American or pro-Russian. Some American writers also explain that the American deep state, both in America and in other countries, manages both the right and the left. For example, both communists and fascists, both secularists and religious people, and so on, to make them fight each other. And finally, they come as saviors to end this war and rule everyone. The writers call this phenomenon, which has many examples, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. In other words, the American deep state manages the thesis and antithesis and creates its own synthesis. You will see many evidences of this as you follow this documentary series. In our future episodes, you will see evidence that the same conspiracy is being carried out by the same people today, and that in the future, good and evil aliens will again divide humanity into two and cause great chaos. The same thing happened in Mu and Atlantis, where people were divided by ideologies, supposedly good and evil, and plunged into endless chaos. Just like today when people are divided into fascists and communists. The conspiracy was so big that people all believed the lie. Just like Goebbels said, the bigger the lie, the more convincing it is. The Quran says the same thing about Prophet Noah's people who perished in the flood.
Noah said, "My Lord, they have disobeyed me, and followed one whose wealth and children give him no increase but only loss."
It is important to note that the term person is used here, not human. These persons with many children and many possessions could be aliens. The fact that these gods had many relations with human women and had many children is also repeatedly mentioned in the ancient records.
And they have plotted a mighty plot.
This verse means that they are preparing great, gigantic, horrible, and terrible traps. The word meeker in this Quranic verse actually means trickery, deception, trap, but it also includes the meaning of order, arrangement. Here it seems to say that the biggest trap is a mental trap rather than an actual and physical trap. Otherwise, we do not see the meaning that they set a trap in front of Noah and made him fall into it. That is, the people followed leaders whose wealth and children would only bring them harm in the hereafter. In order to show to the people that they were guided and good person, these leaders devised great tricks and said to the people, "Do not give up your gods," that is, idol worship.
And they have said, "You shall not leave your gods, nor shall you leave Wad, nor Suwa, nor Yaguth, nor Yauk, nor Nasser."
The 5 idols mentioned here were the idols of the people of Noah, which were later passed on in some form to the Arabs of the pre-Islamic ignorance period. According to the narration of Tabari, these idols were washed away by the flood to the shore of Judah. Amr b Luhai brought them among the Arabs. One of the Jinns, a friend of Amr, who was a soothsayer, told him to go to the shore of Judah and bring the idols he would find there and invite the Arabs to worship them. Amr brought the idols and distributed them among the Arabs. In ancient times, as you know, these idols were depicted as Ved, a man, Suwa, a woman, Yuk, a horse or bull, Nesser, an eagle, and Yegus, a lion. You already see these depictions in ancient idols all over the world. The fact that the same images of these idols also existed among the Arabs, and that even centuries after the flood, these idols were spread all over the world in the same way, is an indication that there was a power behind them that spread them.
And indeed they have led many astray. And, O Allah, grant no increase to the Zaliman, polytheists, wrongdoers and disbelievers, etc., save error. Because of their sins they were drowned. Then were made to enter the fire, and they found none to help them, instead of Allah. And Noah said, "My Lord, leave not one of the disbelievers on the earth. If you leave them, they will mislead your slaves, and they will beget none but wicked disbelievers."
From these verses in the Quran, it is clear that the rulers of the country of Mu have misled many people through their great traps. People were so brainwashed by these traps that even if one of them remained, he would continue to raise his children with the same ideologies and lead them astray. According to the Quran, even Noah's son did not believe in Noah during the flood. The people accused Noah of destabilizing their order, their ideology. In fact, what they called stability was the stability of evil. Humanity has been deceived. They were divided into Belial's forces of darkness and the forces of good, and they were enemy to each other. On the surface, the two ideas were in conflict with each other, but in fact, both ideas were superstitious doctrines. The human race divided into two would fight each other and destroy each other. Noah was caught in the middle in such an environment, he could not find anyone who believed in him and saw the truth among the human beings who were divided into two different poles and could not see any other thought other than two different thoughts. Just like today, people have adopted either communism or capitalism as their form of government and cannot see a third option. And for this cause, there have been countless civil wars all over the world and countless people have died. This list shows the number of deaths and the number of civil wars that took place after the Second World War in almost every part of the world because people supported communism or capitalism, that is America or Russia. Some of these wars lasted for decades and some are still going on. In the same way, there is a lot of evidence that such global wars took place in antiquity, and we will see them in the section on ancient technologies. With this satanic plan, the devil aimed to cause more bloodshed, because otherwise the demons could not kill so many people without endangering themselves.
Because Satan, verily, sows disagreements among them. O you who have believed, enter into peacefulness, the whole of you. And do not ever follow the steps of Shaitan. Surely he is an evident enemy to you.
The forces of good used magic and technology for good. The forces of good taught spells to make people who swore allegiance to them happy. In the same way, the Antichrist, who will emerge with the same teachings and symbols, will say, "I am your savior," and will give power and worldly wealth to the people who pledge allegiance to him through magic. Zechariah Sitchin, in his book Wars of Gods and Men, gives information about the global war described in ancient texts and how this war was a collusion. Zecharia Sitchin describes this war in his book. The god Ninhursag first set out to stop this war and negotiate peace at Enlil's headquarters. The first reaction of Enlil's followers to Ninhursag's brave initiative was to accuse him of helping demons. The Second Pyramid Wars between the gods in antiquity were very bloody and brutal. The hymns attributed to Ninurta make numerous references to his achievements and heroism in this war, characterizing the enemy as the Great Serpent. O mighty one, Great Serpent, you have taken that warrior god from all the mountains where he hid. The phrases appear. The two warring parties are all snakes, as they are related according to historians. The ancient texts also speak of the almost globalized dimension of the war. On one side are Ninurta and Adad, Ninma's first child. They will soon be joined by Sin and later, in Nana, Ishtar. On the other side are Nergal, another god, Ra Marduk, described as mighty, majestic, and Horus, the god of the two great houses, the two great pyramids of Giza, who tries to escape in sheepskin. According to Zecharia Sitchin's translations of ancient texts, when the war is over, nothing happens to the gods. They make peace and the war is over.
Turning to his sister, he says peacefully, "Go and comfort my brother. Offer him a chance for life. Open his barred door and let him out." Doing as he was told, Ninhursag went to fetch his brother and offered him his wishes. He told him that his safety and that of his sons was assured. He signaled them with stars. When Enki hesitated, she tenderly said to him, "Come, let me take you out." Holding Enki's hand as she did so, Ninhursag takes him and the other defenders of the pyramid to Hursag, his home. Ninurta and his warriors watch as Enki's side leaves the stage. The immense and impregnable structure is now empty, and the silent.
So it is clear from this information that the reconciliation of the kings of the two countries was a situation that all humanity enjoyed. But what happened as a result of the war happened to the people. Many people died. It is not known after how many world wars the flood took place. But we learn from ancient writings how the gods fared after the flood. Zecharia Sitchin describes the state of the god Marduk after the flood in her book, The War of Gods and Men, as follows.
But Marduk, the god, says that he wants to take the reins now, citing the change that the flood has caused in the world. After the flood, according to him, the judgment of heaven and earth had gone astray. The cities of the gods in this vast world were not what they used to be. They were not put in their old places. When I look at them again, I'm disgusted by the evil in them. I must regain my old resilience that the flood took away.
The only evidence we have of Marduk's moves is a tablet found in the library of Assurbanipal, in which an aged Marduk describes his aimless travels and his inevitable return to Babylon.
I have been an aimless traveler in many lands. I have gone from where the sun rises to where it sets.
As we see in the ancient texts, the demon Marduk lost his power after the flood. The system of the world changed a lot for him, and he returned to Babylon, which is mentioned in the Quran as the first place where demons taught magic to humans. The reason we are talking about these battles in different records is that they are very similar to each other, and there is a high probability that the same event was described in different cultures. As a result, with the flood, the system of endless chaos that drove people to wars and spread all over the world was destroyed, and the continental countries of Mu and Atlantis, which were the centers of this chaos, sank and disappeared. The kings, the dimensional beings who ruled the people, were no longer visible. In other words, the world was formatted. So what is the evidence about the giants who played a role in these wars? What is described in ancient records and religious texts? Stay tuned for all this and more.